Most men don't even realize they're wasting their 20s and 30s most of the time. It's not obvious. They're not spiraling or reckless. They're frankly just comfortable. They usually hit the gym, go to work, stay out of the way, and think that's enough. But underneath all of that, there's this quiet tension usually. Like they know they're meant for more courage, more presence, more connection, but they keep choosing what's familiar instead of what's real. And usually the sad part is that nobody really checks in on them. Nobody checks them on it. Nobody holds them accountable because they're not really failing on the outside. And eventually that voice kicks in. And they ask themselves, I think a question that most of us ask, or at least I've asked myself before, which is, what would my life look like if I genuinely tried, if I genuinely gave it my all, if I genuinely went for the thing that in the core of my being I know I want? Unfortunately, most men wait too long, especially these days, to answer that. So, if you're in your 20s and 30s, this is going to be the video for you.
All right, so why do so many men get stuck in neutral in their 20s and 30s?
Okay. Neutral. Well, let's define neutral, right? What are the three settings usually? You have neutral, which means no movement, no progress. You have forward, which means we're progressing towards the direction of whatever we want.
Right.
And then we have backwards, reverse, meaning you're actually losing ground.
Right.
So, since the theme of today is the 20s and 30s and why that's such a pivotal moment in a man's life, we're going to take a step back and unpack a few things, right? Like why not just do whatever the hell you want in your 20s and 30s? What's the big deal?
Right.
One, that's a pretty big question. Two, who's anybody else to tell anybody what to do with their life?
Exactly.
Right? And three, is there a right way to do life? Right? There are plenty of people who have, quote unquote, wasted their early part of their lives. And, like Colonel Sanders, for example, if you were to measure success by how much money you accumulate or how much status you achieve, Colonel Sanders that started Kentucky Fried Chicken, if you ever heard the story, started at like 65.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember what he was doing before that, but he was 65, got this amazing chicken recipe, drove around America trying to get different places to buy his recipe.
Mm-hmm.
And it got a bunch of no's. I don't remember how many. And eventually got one place to take it on, and the rest is history. Right? So he was 65 years old. There are plenty of other examples of people who've not wasted their lives. So how do we know what wasting your life means?
Right.
So first and foremost, I'm going to give you a quick overview of what it means to be a man, or like what manhood is more accurately, and then what the expectations of a young man is once he hits adulthood, right? And so manhood is a common term we hear thrown around, and I always say that manhood isn't special.
Right.
It's just a stage of development. So when you're born, you're a newborn, and you're a toddler, you have childhood. Mm-hmm. Then you could say teenagehood, and then you have adulthood, right? And so manhood is simply adulthood for males.
Right.
Womanhood is adulthood for women. So we're going to use the U.S. to say 18 is when you're classified as an adult technically or legally. Mm-hmm. Then if we're going to use 18 would be when a male would become or enter manhood, right? Or a woman would enter womanhood. So what changes from 17 to 18? What happens is that prior to 18, when a young man or a young woman made a mistake, we're going to focus on men. When a young man made a mistake, the responsibility of the mistake, the accountability was lessened or completely put on his parents, right? So if he did something wrong, the younger he is, the more the accountability goes on his parents. So let's take the ratio of accountability for a 2-year-old doing something wrong outside of the presence of his parents is almost 100% on the parent, even if the child did it. The older the child gets, the less that ratio becomes. So from 2 to 10, the ratio of accountability the child has for himself and the ratio of accountability for the parents has lessens, not zero.
Right.
And then 15, it keeps lessening. So as a man or as a boy matures, as he matures like chronologically in terms of age, the level of accountability he takes, meaning the consequences of his actions, his actions and then the consequences of them tie together.
Right.
And when he does something and the consequences come, usually his parents take him. But when he hits 18, he has to take them on himself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are exceptions for this, but technically speaking, right, he has to prepare himself mentally and in action that my mistakes are mine.
Right.
The price I pay for my mistakes are my price to pay. My parents are not obligated to pay the price for me. If they choose to, they can, but not. Now, what's happening, especially in today's time, we have college usually, and in that there's an incubation period for, say, let's 4 to 6 years, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. And within that incubation phase after 18, sometimes a young man can still be in the home or he can go off to college.
Yeah.
And within that period, the parents or a parent is still in support. Sometimes that's the case, sometimes it's not.
Right.
But there's a level of, there's an extension of the covering or almost an extension of childhood. Because being in college is still somewhat perceived as almost like an extension of high school almost. It's like an extended you don't know anything yet kind of phase.
Right.
So you have a lot more grace put on you, and just because you're a young adult, like people understand that you're just getting into the game of transitioning from childhood to adulthood.
Right.
So while the accountability technically is still all on you, there's what's called grace. There's what's called grace extended on you, and the price you pay for the mistakes are less the earlier you are into adulthood.
Right.
Now, as you age, you go 22, 23, 24, let's take it to 25, the level of accountability you have to take at a 25-year-old compared to a 15-year-old is drastically different.
Right.
And that will continue the older you get. But that's not the only thing for men, because again, you may have hit manhood technically 7 years ago. But another aspect is that throughout this period, right, the purpose of going to college, the purpose of the education, the purpose of developing the skill, the purpose when you enter manhood, the man's first priority is self-sufficiency.
Yeah.
The expectation society has on him, the expectation his parents have of him, is that if they're no longer around, if they decide to go and move somewhere else or cut him off financially, he can sustain himself. Mm-hmm. He has the knowledge and the skill set to not have to be a beggar, more or less. Right? He has developed himself enough to where he can offer value to society. And even if it's a meager existence, he's not starving to death. Right? And so that's the first expectation of a man once he hits adulthood, self-sufficiency. Beyond self-sufficiency, we have all these other things that we're going to discuss. Mm-hmm. But self-sufficiency is the first checkbox. Now, a man that cannot sustain himself is not what's called useful, right? Because how do we determine useful? You have something that positively benefits. You have a skill set or knowledge that positively benefits somebody else's life.
Right.
And usually when we can do that, people give us something in exchange for our value, which is called money. Mm. And that's really how we measure a man's utility. Though money doesn't define a man, but it is a tool used to aid in his self-sufficiency and survival.
Right.
Right. So once the self-sufficiency is in place, then he can start focusing on like escalating, right? I've met the survival quotient, and now I can focus on how do I develop myself mentally? How do I develop myself? Because fundamentally, you just want to make sure that you're alive.
Right.
Right. So, manhood, self-sufficiency, and then eventually sovereignty are the first steps. And then from there, it's really what do you value? Right? Now that you can survive, now that that's not your primary concern, mommy and daddy don't have to watch your back and you're not living with the... Now we can start going, well, my existence isn't just about survival.
Right.
Okay, I'm eating. What do I actually care about? Where do I actually want to go? Who do I want to have around me? What do I want life to look like? And then you start asking those questions.
Right.
And those are the questions when one are almost never asked sometimes, or they're asked, but the immediate thought that arises for a young man is, but I can't have that.
Right.
But that's not for me. I was recently talking to a client of mine, and well, quite a few actually. And I was doing a mini survey because quite a few I'm noticing a pattern of probably between ages 25 and 30, an increase in singleness, but not singleness because they're just choosing to be single.
Right.
Especially prior to our work together. So I'm like, okay. I did a little survey, like, what are your reasons for not having a dynamic in that present? Is it just because you don't want one? Is it because...
Right.
And a lot of the answers came back, all of them said, yes, I do actually, I would prefer, there are times where I'm lonely, I would prefer companionship. And a lot of it came down to, I used to have the false assumption that I needed to have all my ducks in order
Before even entertaining the thought.
I had to. They attributed it typically to external circumstances. I have to have the money. I have to have the discipline. I have to have the body. I have to, like, all these things, right? Before they're worthy of a woman, because they're pedestalizing the woman. They don't realize it. They don't think of it in this way. But we're going to do a conversation on that misconception later. Or it's usually having to do with conversation. Well, I have quite a few things together, but I don't know how to make it past the awkward pauses. I don't know what to say to her. I don't have the confidence that it'll go well.
Right.
Who am I to? Why would she like me? Like things that have to do with internal sense, an internal sense of worth.
Right.
So it's usually external, and if the externals are in place, then it's an internal issue.
Right.
So I'm like, this is what's going on. We're dealing with a mass self-confidence, low expectation of success problem, rather than a people or young men not knowing what they actually would like to have happen.
Right.
So, I actually forgot what the initial question was, so I can ring it in.
The initial question was, why do so many men get stuck in neutral in
Okay.
their 20s and 30s?
I was like, is that what it was? But given that, right, usually they get stuck in neutral because the survival quotient is met, meaning I'm not worried about dying tomorrow.
Right. I'm sufficient. I'm self-sufficient.
Right.
Yeah.
And today, back in the day, the pain of a lack of progress would have been harder to get away from. One, because potentially there would be a greater emphasis for young men to be pushed out of the nest, to develop self-sufficiency. The gap between the self-sufficiency gap. I mean, I know quite a few young men who, at 25, this is not a negative, positive, but just a thing, 25, 26, were able to just still be at the house, right? So there's not as much, not all the time, but as much emphasis to leave the nest.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of guys who aren't confident based on the fact that they've never bruised their knee. They've never been, so they're like, oh shoot. And so they'd rather the comfort and safety of being at home than the freedom
Right.
and power that comes with self-sufficiency and sovereignty.
Right.
So when you have a situation like that, and then probably the more important factor of the modern time is cheap distractions. Back in the day, you have to have some money to go to the bar. You got to have some money to go, whatever other distractions, as a 25-year-old adult male. Then you see other males out there doing things. But we were more isolated as young men as ever. More isolated as young men than ever. And then you feel more connected technically than ever. Not because you actually feel connected, but because you can literally go on a Discord group, or you can go on a Facebook group, or you can go on. And you can feel like you're not alone to some extent. But you do still feel very lonely most of the time. There are no or very few real connections or people, frankly, around that you could genuinely go, man, like, I know that me and such would really get to it.
Right.
And so the survival quotient is met, and the distraction, the availability of I'm going to just distract myself from the pain is high. And then on top of that, the typical or a very strong driver typically for young men would be the desire for sexual access.
Yeah.
And so if we throw in the pornography in there, that adds a whole different layer of drainage of motivation, because you're masturbating 1 to 2 times per day or multiple times per week. And that has a lot of effects. This isn't a corn video, but you know what I mean? Like, there's so many variables. But I'd say the number one thing is just that most guys are trapped in the virtual world, quite literally.
Yeah.
And the physical realm seems too daunting and almost not worth it. And so, and then the lack of self-confidence. So it's like, why not stay in neutral? I'll just do it tomorrow. I'll just change tomorrow.
Right. That kind of brings me to my next question, which is, what is the cost of living that way? Like, even if your life, quote unquote, looks fine on the surface, but what is the cost of that?
Yeah, because there are quite a few guys who are actually they are at self-sufficiency. They're not living with anyone.
Right.
And so that guy may be thinking, well, yeah, there are quite a few things that, if I'm honest, whether it be my fitness, whether it be my social life, whether it be, some things with my health, if I'm honest, whether it be whatever it may be, right? Whether it be a career change that I know I need to change, but why no?
Right.
And so it is important for them to understand what the price is, because I don't think the consciousness of the price is conscious. Like, I don't think they're aware of that.
Right.
And one of the reasons is because of something we talked about, which is the illusion of immortality.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
When we're young, youth is all we've ever known.
Right.
So we've never known any other reality than having more time, or the perceived, I have a plenty of time. And so we get into a mental loop of, I'll do it tomorrow, because if you're 21 or you're 25, there is like a real expectation of a lot of tomorrow. And so it's like, okay, well, yeah, why not put it off? Why not go, oh, I'll do it later. But then I'm going to do it later becomes an identity. It turns from a genuine thing that may be appropriate for the moment to an identity. And so the only thing they don't do later is the distraction.
Right.
But the reason it's called a distraction is it's because it's removing your attention from the thing that matters.
Right.
Right? We don't call doing what matters distractions. We only call distractions things that take us away from what matters.
Mm-hmm.
So when a young man becomes cognizant that he's dying, and instead of thinking of his life as what am I going to live into,
Mm-hmm.
or what is the quality of my life as I continue to live, the more accurate thing is to say, what is the quality of my life going to be as I die?
Mm.
Because the hourglass is running out. Every moment is the youngest we'll ever be.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so what's the relevance of youth in this?
Right.
And why is the 20s and 30s so critical? Well, those are the years where you get to practice self-sufficiency. Those are the years where you have the greatest vitality. Right, the greatest amount of energy and the least responsibility. Right, you may have a child or two, depending on the case and the situation. But even then, it's going to be the highest vitality and the lowest responsibility. And because you have the energy, you have the opportunity. When you have no energy, you have no more opportunity. Mm-hmm. Right, that's why older people, it's not like they're not able to open their eyes, so to speak, but the energy is not there. Mm-hmm. The capacity has left them. And so the range of opportunity is way smaller. Mm-hmm. They're not dunking at 70, like 80. Like unless you're like a really fit grandpa.
Fit grandma be dunking
like,
people.
But probably not. Not at 80.
Not at 80, no.
So you might snap some.
Yeah.
And so the vitality, the strength, the capacity decreases over time. Right? And so because of that, there's actually a window of opportunity that never comes twice.
Right.
And in this window, a man is usually called his peak or his prime. Mm-hmm. Right? Why is it called your prime? It's because what you do within that window, within that 20 to 30 window, mm-hmm. is likely to determine the quality of the next 50 years. Within that period of time, he has to figure out, well, what do I want to compound over the next 10, 20, 30 years? Yeah. And the foundation of which will be dependent upon how he invests his 20s. Mm-hmm. So if a guy is socially inept, meaning no social circles, poor skills with women, poor financial decisions, mm-hmm. poor health habits, and let's say he says, I'll wait till later, and then later starts compounding. So he was 22, 23, 25, 26, 28 when he was supposed to stop putting that off till later.
Right.
And so the social skills he was supposed to have developed has now been 6 years later. And I know a guy like this in particular. I may share the story. But the social skills he should have developed is 6 to 8 years less. Right. The fitness, the training of his body, instead of his body compounding into a healthier body, is compounded into an unhealthy body, which could lead to diseases. Instead of his finances compounding, it's compounded to the negative, right? Instead of his intelligence compounding, it's compounded to closer to stupidity. And so it's not as if, I think one of the things that's dangerous is not paying attention to what's compounding.
Right.
We think that we remain in neutral. So if I'm eating a donut today and I eat it for the next 6 years, but I said, you know what, I'm going to change this someday. I keep putting it off. It's not as if the day I change 6 years later, I'm the same man
Right.
as when I said I'm going to change.
Right. Because the effects of the donut already has
Mm-hmm.
taken place.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's compounding against you.
Right.
And so when a man puts something off tomorrow, he's actually he's using what Einstein, I believe it was Einstein, says compound interest is the seventh wonder of the world.
Mm.
Right? Or something like that. I don't remember the exact quote. But the point of that is to say that sometimes it can be tricky and we underestimate how quickly things accumulate. And the brain, I'm trying to not get too nitty-gritty here, but the brain is reinforcing our behaviors and our thoughts every day.
Right.
And so if I go, I know I need to change my social life. I know I need to do something about it. I know I need to watch a video. I know I need to get a training. I know I need to do something with the finances. Or I know I need to do something with my fitness. Or I know I need. It's like, I'll do it later.
Mm-hmm.
And go back to playing video. It's just one more day.
Right.
It's just one more day. But it's one more day of the brick being laid of the house you don't want to live in. It's one more day of the brick being laid of the house you don't want to live in. So when you start rebuilding the home, energy is neither created nor destroyed. You're going to have to demolish that one. You can't just build a new one on top of the old one. Mm. So you're going to have to demolish that, and that's going to take a lot of energy before you even get any neutral. Then you get to neutral. Then you get to progress.
Right.
So you're actually going in reverse. Going in reverse with a lot of the things we avoid. And then the things we're progressing in are the distractions. And so then he's 28, then he's 32, then he's 35, and he's become the distracted man. And he's like, shoot. Because as we said, the older you get, the less support you get. The older you get, the less grace you get. Mm-hmm. The older you get, especially when it comes to social circles. So you're 35, you're 37, you're 40. You're still so many things. And on top of that, if we're talking about family building, mm-hmm. And most guys I talk to in their early 20s expect to have families. And the expectation is that somehow mystically they'll develop the social skills necessary to attract and keep the kind of women they want, and then encourage them to want to have children with them. Mm-hmm. Right? Very unlikely. And so they're compounding in the negative. So they're eventually going to take some initiative to change things. But they keep pushing it off till tomorrow, till it gets to a point where the load they have to move to just get to neutral, then get to progress is so big that they just give up and they live a mediocre life and they become what's called a loser. Because a loser isn't a guy without potential. Mm-hmm. The loser is the guy that kept putting it off till tomorrow.
Right. And
then eventually the negative identity, the low self-image becomes so massive that he's like, oh, dang, how did I get here? How did I become the guy when I was in high school, when I was in middle school, that one uncle that I was like, dang, I'd never be like Uncle Pete. Mm. And now they've become Uncle Pete. Now they've become the cousin. Now they're 34 and it's like, whoa. And now they're embarrassed about it. Because they become a man they wouldn't want to hang around them. Mm. And so that's the real price. Negative compound interest will eat you alive. And before you know it, you can't even look yourself in the mirror.
Exactly. Well, that's, yeah. So You gotta answer my question. Why is now the time and not when I'm ready? That's you really went in.
Well, I can do a quick sum on that because it is slightly different. Why is now the time? Literally not, because there's a difference between now, literally the video you're watching right now,
Yeah.
and the now in like a later now,
Right.
right? Because you ever watch a video and you're like, man, I'm fired up and da 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 da.
You like ready to take action right at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then you have like later now, which is like, man, I'm fired up. I'm going to watch this video. I'm going to save to my watch later. And that now got extended into later, but it feels like now.
Right.
But it was really later. So why not literally now? Why most guys that are listening to this won't make a decision? If they've gotten to this point in the video, there are a handful of guys that are like, man, I need to do something. Right? Let's say the discomfort challenge. I'll share 2 stories with this. So the discomfort challenge was something that I ran about from the recording date of this 2 weeks now, or a week and a half ago. And it was basically 14 days where a group of men were invited to a private group to participate in a challenge each day.
Right.
Each day is going to test them either physically, usually if the cycle is physically, internally, which is some kind of self-reflection, emotionally, and then socially, so something having to do with interaction with other people. Now, I remember when I posted that that challenge, announcing it, a guy commented and he was like, man, this is the moment. Like, I know this, like, I need to get out of my, and he said a phrase that really stuck with me. He said he felt trapped inside his own body. And I had quite a few people that were in the background that said I resonate deeply with that sentiment. I remember, in fact, I'm remembering right now, I haven't remembered that statement in a while, but feeling trapped inside your own body.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, okay, cool. And whoever that was, because I remember who finished it. He didn't finish. I don't know if he even joined. And so there were quite a few guys that ended up joining, and I'm ready to get it done. A lot of them didn't even make it to the first day. Had to get removed from the group. And after the first day, some of them, like, I commend whoever even attempted. First day, everybody for the most part got through. It was a cold shower challenge. And by day 3, like flies.
Yeah.
Right. By week 2, just people disappearing like ghosts.
Yeah.
Right. And at a certain point, I'd message a few people to see, like, okay, what's going on? Many didn't reply. And all I said to them was, like, if you're not going to complete it, just announce it in the group. That's all I asked. Because what was really happening was they knew they weren't going to complete it, but they didn't want to acknowledge and hold themselves accountable publicly.
Yeah.
Right. I wanted to not complete it. I wanted to go back into the comfort zone, but I also wanted to not own up to the fact that I quit. I wanted to blame my circumstances again. I wanted to blame the feeling. I wanted to blame I was tired from work. But that's the very reason they'll end up a loser, because that's the same reason they're saying I'll do it later for everything in their life.
Yeah.
So at the end of it, there were about 6 to 7 guys that made it through. And I remember of that guy. I remember thinking of him when I went. There were quite a few guys in there like that who were like, man, this is the moment.
Yeah. And everybody got a lot of benefits from it. So if this was the moment, the benefits would have been. Yeah.
And nothing but support in the group.
Literally.
Nothing but support.
Yeah.
And accountability and people wanting you to win.
Yeah.
And they couldn't even face themselves. Or if you couldn't handle it, say, I'm bowing out, y'all. Thanks for supporting me. Right? And so when you think of a guy like that, it's not that he wasn't capable.
Right.
It's not that he didn't intend for greatness.
Yeah.
Nothing more than there's only one reason he didn't do it. When the moment came, he didn't feel like it. Whether the feeling that emerged was fear, whether the feeling that emerged was anxiety, he didn't do it because of a feeling. And in that moment, the feeling was saying, stop, this is uncomfortable. And he said, okay. That's the difference. He submitted.
Yeah.
The sovereign man that dominates in life doesn't submit. That's the difference. He acknowledges it. He feels the fear, but he doesn't submit to it. And those guys submitted. And they're probably the same place. No, they're worse. Negative compound interest. They're at a worse position than they were. Right. But now they can still do something about it. Right. It's not like this over for them. But the more time they put off, the greater the negative compound interest gets.
Right.
And the harder it would be to turn around. And so the now, why not do it now? Literally in this moment is that the thing in your head as you're thinking about why you should do it later, why after clicking this video you're going to go, oh, well, I'm going to make a change soon. That voice right there is why everything you fear happening, because you know what you're trying to run away from, everything you truly fear happening will happen. It will. The ending up alone, some guy, and this used to be hard for me to accept. But a couple guys listening to this will end up alone. A couple guys listening to this will, if they're virgins right now, will die virgins. They didn't want to. Other than maybe paying for some sex or something like that. But a lot of guys have weight stuff, will stay overweight. A lot of guys have a version of themselves internally that they know they can get access to, and it won't happen. They will end up like the guy nobody wants to be like. They will be Uncle Jimmy that nobody admires. And that used to be I'm like, no. But I also have to respect every man's power to choose.
Right.
And let it compound. A man is allowed to compound it to it negatively. But now he's just in a place where all the consequences will come down on him with the full force of reality.
Yeah.
And there will be no escape. And that reality is something that is sometimes very difficult to swallow. But if it is swallowed, pause. Then there's one guy listening to this that will go, man, I need to do something. I need to either get some help. I need to do one little change. I need to stop doing that thing I know is going to cost me everything. And it's for that one guy that I answered that question. Because I might never hear from him. He may never comment. He may never. But I know. Because there have been plenty of videos I've seen that made the difference for me.
Right.
And I never left a comment. But it did everything. It shifted the trajectory. And so he'll know himself. And as for the rest, there has to be a 99% for the one to exist.
Exactly.
So it's just a matter of who's going to be.
Okay, so if somebody is feeling stuck, feeling trapped in their body, what is something that they can do to break free from that?
So, there are a couple of things because it varies depending upon the thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the answer fundamentally is always going to be the same, which is to pick one area of your life and then one activity within that area. So let's say it's fitness.
Mm-hmm.
I want to, what would clarify, what do you want? What do I want? Like if you're listening to this right now, what do I want? I want to lose 50 pounds. I want to lose 10 pounds.
Right.
Okay. So now you've clarified what you want, right? And that's the area where you know that you could be doing more. Like brain. Now it's like, okay, what do you feel like you need to do to lose 10 pounds? Maybe it's like, oh, I need to go eat less donuts. I need to hit the gym. I need to whatever.
Right.
And find the literal bare minimum thing you need to do. And do that for the next 5 days.
Yeah.
And then gradually escalate it from there. So if it's, I want to go to the gym, it would be, okay, can I show up to the gym and leave? Right.
I remember I had my show up era.
Mm-hmm. Right. And you're like, oh, I'm not a gym person, and you had an identity around that.
Right.
And as you show up to the gym, I was like, you don't have to work out.
Mm-hmm.
Just come and literally be in the gym and sit down.
Mm-hmm.
And what will eventually happen is you will get in the habit of physically being at the gym, and you'll get bored of that. And then they're like, okay, we'll do the bare minimum of a workout. I think you used to choose the treadmill or Stairmaster or something.
Stairmaster, yeah.
All right. Okay. Bare minimum, Stairmaster gets boring. And like, okay, maybe I can do a workout of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, your body and mind will get used to being in the gym to where it's going to feel weirder to not be there.
Mm-hmm.
And then gradually, the behavior will become ingrained. And throughout this process, the last step would be asking yourself, what did you learn and what did you do well each day? Mm-hmm. So never say, oh, wait, I should have done this, I should have done that, I could have done that better.
Right.
At no point in that process are you allowed to look at what you did wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? That's because when you're beginning something, most of what you'll do will be wrong. Exactly. You'll be 99% wrong. Mm-hmm. So if you think focusing on the 99% and trying to correct the 99% will be the best, when you hit a certain point, when you're doing like, when we get to this point, you want to increase the 1% you're doing right and focus on it until you have unconscious competence, meaning you can do it habitually. Then that 1% will gradually grow into 2%, 3%, 4%. Now, when you hit a certain number, let's say 50%, 60% of doing the thing right, after just focusing on what you're doing right, and what did you learn, right? Then at that point, you can usually start, when you're doing 99% things right, then the 1% you're doing wrong starts to matter. But usually people start by trying to find out what they're doing wrong first. Mm-hmm. And they see a billion things, feel overwhelmed, and quit. Right. This is a tricky one because I remember, to close this out, I remember this has nothing to do with the fitness one, but just a story of the price there is to pay. I'll make this real short, but I remember I had a buddy who actually knew in high school when I came to the States, and used to be very cool, and then we fell out of being cool, ran into each other in college. And around this time, I had gone through my social skills progress, right? Went from shy to that guy.
I'm not gonna play with you.
Bang.
Shy to that guy.
Bang.
Same.
Bang. You know, that's a
product.
It's a new program.
Yeah, I was gonna say we can tell that we're going
right. From wimp to him, right?
Yeah.
All right, we can work on that one. But so he at this point I had gone through a lot of pain and embarrassment and had started to become identifiable around campus at the time as someone that seems to have a level of notoriety, we'll put it that way. So around that time I ran into him, so I'm thinking, okay, cool. He updated me on the social skill things. He was a part of like a group of people. He was like a skater type of guy. And this time we're like 21, I think. And, it was kind of messy and he always felt like, as far as he told me, they were talking behind his back, but he kept going back around him. And so I was like, okay, well, cool. No bad blood. I can show you what I've learned more or less and put you in the right environments and teach you the right skill sets to, at the bare minimum, get a girl or 3 and have some friends. So I basically brought him into my world, and it was like, hey, bro, have at it. Now you have friends, now people like. And through a series of events, and because of him being in his own way, after about 1.5 years of that, we had lost contact through choices of his own, and that was that until about 5 to 6 years later. He reached out to me on Instagram, and we met up. And over the past, I remember also, this is a relevant point. In the hometown where we used to live, as I told you, was in high school. We'd have this joke, that's why I'm very sensitive to this. We were like 17. We're like, we're not going to be 27 in our hometown. And that used to represent, we're not going to end up like the people who didn't respect compound interest, didn't respect youth, always said tomorrow. And they were quote unquote cool in high school. And 10 years later you see them and they look awful. They're in a dead-end situation in life with no vision. And you're like, what the hell happened to you, man? And they might still live with their parents. And you're like, man, this person had so much potential. What the hell happened to them? And I was like, we'll never end up like that. We'll never be 27 in our hometown. And when we lost contact, we were about 22. Maybe he actually reached out back to me around when we were 23 or 24, and he was in the same position. And I had a talk with him, a sincere talk, like, bro, he was bringing up stuff from 2-3 years ago, and I was like, bro, how are you in the same state of consciousness as back then? Much less, like, what? But I still had love for him, so it wasn't a bad blood thing. He, just like one of those people who would switch up out of nowhere. And this is what happened in high school, how we fell off, and then this is what happened at that time. So that was on me for not learning my lesson. But it didn't impact me in that way. So, it wasn't one of those things where if somebody chooses one day, I'm not bothered by that. So I don't regret anything I did. Mm-hmm. Which is why when he reached back out again, I was able to. I'm like, all right, out of love, I'll link up and we'll grab a bite and just chop it up. Mm-hmm. And from around 23 or 24, I hadn't seen him. Until about a few years later, we met up, and again, this is the power or the danger of not respecting compound interest. He was a virgin at the time. And we met back up again, and it was the same feeling. I was like, you know what, sure, I'll read. At this point, over 27, and living in this parents' house, still a virgin, still figuring it out job-wise. which is fine. Like, you can be figuring out, but that wasn't the problem. The problem was that he kept choosing comfort over growth. And that compounded to the point where he up until the point I met up with him, I hadn't even met up with a person in over 5 years. I don't know if he had any face-to-face social interaction. And I saw the trajectory, the potential of this back then. But I think prior to then, I didn't think it was possible. You kind of think that's an option, that's a reality, but that can't actually happen. And it did. He ended up as the very guy, arguably worse, the very guy when we were 17 we said we'd never be. And so it wasn't it was an intelligent guy, like nothing technically from a capability standpoint that was ever stopping him.
Right.
But I'll do it tomorrow. And so I just want to round out with that story. If there's a thing you know you need to do, do it. You're dying.